Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating and honestly an incredibly validating topic, intellectual isolation, and exactly why deep thinkers so often feel alone. If you've ever felt like you're just operating on a completely different wavelength than the rest of the world, well, stick around because we are going to uncover the hidden psychological mechanisms behind it.
Picture this for a second. Have you ever stood right in the middle of a crowded room, surrounded by people laughing, chatting, clinking glasses, and yet you felt entirely isolated? You might have plenty of acquaintances. You might even have a bustling social calendar. But internally, there's this persistent, nagging feeling. It's almost as if there's a thick, invisible glass wall right between your mind and the vibrant world happening right in front of you.
Let's dive into Section 1, the illusion of antisocial behavior, and how our minds actually function.
To an outside observer, your quiet withdrawal might just look like you're being antisocial, or maybe they even think you're being boring. But here's the massive psychological pivot we need to make today. What looks like a lack of interest is actually just a byproduct of how highly intelligent brains process information, depth, and connection. It isn't that you don't want people around. It's fundamentally about how your mind functions. This loneliness isn't a flaw in your personality. It's a natural byproduct of advanced cognitive processing. Your mind just interacts with the world in a way that makes standard, everyday social interaction feel remarkably different, and honestly, quite taxing.
Moving right along to Section 2, craving depth and processing everything. Let's talk about cognitive appetite.
You see, highly intelligent minds have a remarkably low tolerance for meaningless conversation. And it's not snobbery at all, it's a profound difference in cognitive appetite. On one side, we have your standard surface-level chatting, the typical small talk about the weather or generic weekend plans, mostly just used to fill silence and avoid awkwardness. But for a deep thinker, participating in this feels completely emotionally empty. It's literally like eating empty calories when you are starving. Fast learners and deep thinkers crave intentional conversation. They're constantly searching for the why and the how behind every single topic. Staying on the surface just feels like a massive waste of mental energy. So they withdraw to save that energy, all while secretly craving that rare, intensely meaningful connection.
To really understand why this happens, we have to look at something called metacognition. Basically, it's the ability to think about your own thinking. Imagine it like having a dozen background apps running on your phone all at once, silently analyzing the very thoughts you're currently having. Intelligent people often don't respond instantly in a casual conversation because their brain is busy running this heavy background process. They're exploring different angles, checking for hidden meanings, and formulating a complete, well-rounded thought before they ever even open their mouths.
But man, here's the unfortunate reality of metacognition in a fast-paced, small-talk world. By the time you are finally ready to speak, the conversation has completely moved on. The topic changed 3 sentences ago. Someone else jumped in, and your carefully crafted thought is now totally irrelevant. This internal delay causes a profound feeling of being out of sync with everyone else. And over time, it can definitely leave you feeling like a passive observer in life, rather than an active participant in the group.
That brings us to Section 3, seeing what others miss, and the power of pattern recognition.
Highly intelligent individuals aren't just deep thinkers, they are highly tuned pattern recognizers. They are constantly picking up on details that just fly totally under the radar for everyone else. While someone else is just listening to the literal words being spoken, the deep thinker is noticing the slight hesitation in a tone of voice. They catch those fleeting micro-facial expressions and subtle shifts in someone's posture or behavior. They aren't just collecting facts from the chat, they're actively building complex mental models and gathering emotional context to understand the entire situation on a much, much deeper level. So ultimately, you end up seeing this hidden reality that literally no one else acknowledges. Imagine how incredibly isolating it feels to sense thick tension in a supposedly relaxed room, or to know for an absolute fact that someone is deeply upset despite their wide smile while everyone else around you is just reacting to the surface. It can really make you feel like you're watching a completely different movie than the rest of the audience.
All right, Section 4, the high cost of socializing and cognitive overload.
Because you process things so deeply and naturally read between the lines, even a supposedly relaxing night out triggers a massive, inescapable cycle of overthinking. First, you live the moment. Seems simple enough, right? But then comes step 2. You replay it. Step 3, you search for meaning. You end up lying in bed at 1 a.m. wondering why on earth you casually said "you too" when the waiter told you to enjoy your meal. Or you obsessively overanalyze a fleeting glance someone gave you. Finally, step 4 is just pure mental exhaustion. You might physically be home, but mentally you're still running a marathon of social analysis.
Psychologically speaking, the math just doesn't add up. Imagine a scale. On one side, the emotional cost, that high mental tax from constant overthinking, filtering, and analysis is incredibly heavy. On the other side, the social reward is often far lower than the enormous amount of energy you spent to get it. When the emotional cost consistently, heavily outweighs the social reward, deep thinkers just naturally isolate themselves. And they don't do this out of malice or some sense of superiority. It's simply to protect their inner world and find some much-needed peace.
Which leads us to our final part, Section 5, reframing your intellectual isolation as something internally driven.
It is time for a really empowering realization here. Your isolation does not stem from a social deficit. It's actually because your identity is fundamentally internally driven. You are vastly less influenced by fleeting social trends. You get very little dopamine reward from the modern performance of socializing, or from, documenting your life for external validation. Instead, you prioritize true immersion and absolute authenticity. Deep thinkers eventually stop trying to match the expectations of the crowd because they just don't rely on social momentum to tell them who they are.
And because you don't rely on the crowd for validation, you're significantly more comfortable standing out, which naturally increases your distance from the majority. This fierce independence breeds a profound level of self-awareness. You know yourself well enough to stand apart from the crowd, even if that means standing entirely alone. It is not a bug in your programming, it is a core, fundamental feature of your psychology.
If there is only one thing you take away from this explainer today, let it be this. You aren't antisocial. You are simply highly intentional. If you feel lonely because of your intellect, absolutely nothing is broken. Your mind is acting as a highly sensitive filter, intentionally guarding your energy and demanding absolute depth before engaging. You're simply looking for a level of depth the world just doesn't always provide.
So what if you trusted your own frequency? What could you achieve if you completely stopped trying to match the crowd? Think about the massive amount of energy you would save. Think about the focus you could harness to build, to create, or to learn. If you enjoy this explainer and want to continue uncovering the fascinating, hidden psychology behind everyday behavior, please make sure to subscribe. Keep seeking depth, keep trusting your incredible mind, and I will see you in the next one.